What if you were trying to get pregnant and nothing worked out? One day, a spaceship crashes in your backyard, and inside it is a seemingly harmless little boy. Over the years, you start to think it might have been better to leave the baby in the forest, since he's becoming more of a psychopath as he discovers he has superpowers, which will definitely not be used for good. What would you do in this situation? This is the story of Brightburn, a dark movie that came out in 2016, and I'm here to break down the plot, tell you how many people got wrecked, criticize the stupid decisions of these characters, and explain what they should have done to defeat this knockoff Superman. So don't be a fool like the kid's parents and hit that subscribe button to support the channel and smash that like with a furious laser beam. The movie starts by introducing the Brier family, made up of Tori and Kyle. The two live on a farm in the quiet town of Brightburn, Kansas. This couple has been trying to get pregnant for a while, but no baby yet, which is driving Tori nuts as she keeps reading fertility books. One way to fix the situation would have been to try artificial insemination, which has an average success rate of about 25% for women under 35, which is Tori's age. They could have also spent a bit more on in vitro fertilization, which increases the chances to about 60% under the same conditions. A third option would be to swing by the nearest adoption agency and pick up a baby. Around 18,000 children are given up for adoption every year in the US, so finding one in Kansas probably wouldn't have been too hard. Unfortunately, they make a dumb decision when a spaceship crashes near their property and inside is a 1-year-old boy. They immediately adopt the boy, and for the next 10 years, everything seems fine. Here's another tip to beat this movie. If an alien crashes on your farm, don't make it part of your family. That's only worked twice, with Goku and Clark Kent. Every other time, it goes horribly wrong. So the Brier family should have called the local police, who would have contacted the FBI, and both the kid and the spaceship would have been studied by the best scientists in the country, all under strict confidentiality. Maybe the family would have even gotten a fat settlement to buy them out of their farm. Anyway, Tori and Kyle named the boy Brandon, and he seems like a normal human. Well, almost normal. For his age, Brandon is super smart and aces his biology teacher's questions, but the other kids make fun of him, probably because they'll end up mooching off their parents when they grow up. The only one who defends Brandon is Caitlin, a little girl who says that smart people will rule the world. That night, things get crazy when a red light lights up in the farm's barn, and Brandon immediately wakes up, possessed by the devil. The kid jumps out of his window like he's at a playground and walks over to the barn. Tori hears the noise and follows him there, finding him in a trance while he's trying to violently open a trap door. When Tori touches his shoulder, Brandon snaps out of his hypnotic state and asks where he is. Kyle comes home shortly after from work and asks if everything's okay. Tori lies to him, saying Brandon had a sleepwalking episode and ended up in the kitchen. This is a major communication fail that's going to ruin the family in a few days. What I'm saying is, it's clear Kyle hid the spaceship under the barn to avoid drawing attention from the authorities, so Tori could have just told the truth, and Kyle would have moved the mysterious object somewhere far from the property. Another thing, why the heck did they store a spaceship on their property? Everyone knows space objects can carry radiation, which is highly toxic to human life. By burying it there, the radiation could spread and contaminate the soil, which would ruin the family's business. They might even be lucky if the space debris didn't cause terminal diseases. Forget everything I said, because the next day, Kyle leaves Brandon to mow the lawn by himself. The mower engine decides to quit, forcing Brandon to yank the cord to get it started, but the thing just won't work. This makes Brandon totally lose it, and in a fit of rage, he throws the mower a mile away, something no human could do. He realizes he's hit puberty in space when the spaceship made contact with him the night before, which makes Brandon the world's worst teenager in just a few minutes. When he sees the mower's blade spinning, the spoiled kid puts his hand on it, instantly breaking the blade without getting a scratch. Later, we see Brandon celebrating his 12th birthday at a diner. His uncles, Marilee and Noah, are also there, and if you didn't notice, Noah is played by Matt Jones, the Badger from Breaking Bad. As Noah wasn't exactly a genius in that series, here he shows he hasn't evolved much, as we see him giving Brandon a hunting rifle. Brandon gets really excited to shoot the rifle, but Kyle forbids him, saying he's too young for it. Parallel Superman gets super angry and demands his dad hand over the rifle. Luckily, Kyle's an old school dad and tells Brandon to get up because the party's over due to his bad behavior. Later, Later, when Tori and Kyle relax on the couch, they talk about their son's behavior and foolishly chalk it up to adolescence, which doesn't make any sense, especially considering the attack he had at the barn. Kyle thinks he can fix things by going camping with the family in the woods, but I think it's too late, especially when he sees Brandon chewing on a fork in what looks like a catatonic state. Before they leave the house, Tori and Kyle find something very sticky under Brandon's bed, and I'm not talking about Miss Mellons, but gross photos of animal entrails and anatomy drawings. Every freak has their kink. When they get to the campsite, we see Kyle inviting Brandon to hunt. This is when Kyle decides to have that father-son talk. He explains to Brandon that it's normal to feel things for girls and want to do certain things with them. On top of that, Kyle emphasizes that playing with the banana is natural for a man going through puberty. Brandon then asks if it would be normal to do that right now, which deeply disturbs Kyle, as only an idiot would ask something like that.
What, are you retarded?
The bad part is, Brandon takes the lesson literally and decides to sneak out that night to visit Caitlin. The girl wakes up to the sound of Elvis playing on the laptop and gets up to turn it off. However, the computer turns back on, and she mutes the music again. When she turns towards the window, she sees Brandon floating behind the curtain and screams like a scared little girl. Her mom, Erica, wakes up and runs to her daughter's room, but she doesn't see Brandon because the kid had already escaped. In the meantime, Tori and Kyle are searching for their son in the woods when he shows up with a straight face, saying he was just out getting water. The next day, we see Marilee and Tori talking. Tori is getting freaked out by her son's behavior. The kid's aunt, who happens to be a school therapist, says Brandon's behavior is normal because he's growing hair down there. Tori talks to Brandon and notices he's drawing a logo in his notebook, like Peter Parker, but with the initials BB for Brandon Brier. When night falls, things get even weirder when Kyle catches Brandon in a trance again, but this time he looks like he's really craving a bucket of KFC chicken since he's staring down the hens in the farm's chicken coop. Kyle asks if everything's okay, but this time, Brandon doesn't seem confused and answers in a totally psychotic way. A few hours later, Kyle and Tori wake up to the sound of the chickens, and when they get to the coop, they see that all the chickens have become the restaurant's main dish, as they've all been slaughtered. Tori thinks it was a wolf, but Kyle examines the bruises and realizes Brandon was the one behind the chicken massacre. Tori obviously refuses to believe it, but Kyle realizes their son is on a path from which there's no return. The next day, we see Brandon, Caitlin, and some other energetic teens in gym class when the teacher asks them to swing Brandon back and forth. However, Caitlin thinks he's a little pervert after seeing him enter her room, which grosses her out, so she doesn't hold Brandon, causing him to fall to the ground like pigeon poop in the park. He's not happy about this, and when Caitlin is forced to help him up, Brandon simply breaks the girl's hand with the same ease as snapping a portion of pasta. A parental dispute kicks off when Caitlin's mother accuses Brandon of not being a normal boy. She also makes it clear that Tori and Kyle have no idea what they've gotten into since they know Brandon's biological family. It's implied that the town knows Brandon isn't the Brier's biological child, but they believe the couple adopted him in a conventional way, not through extraterrestrial means. Once again, we see Kyle trying to convince Tori that their son is going down a dark path. This time, Tori opens up and tells him that Brandon was trying to open the trap door. Forget all of that, because Brandon enters another trance and starts hearing the spaceship talking to him in an alien language. He's then led to the barn, and this time, the kid uses his super strength to open the trap door. As soon as it happens, Brandon is levitated into the air. Tori hears the noise in the barn and tries to bring her son down, which deactivates the communication with the spaceship and makes Brandon fall into the trap door, where he cuts his hand on the devilish capsule. Until that point, he had never bled or gotten sick, but the spaceship's material is capable of tearing his skin. Apparently, this is the only weakness Brandon has, a clear reference to Superman's kryptonite. Tori and Kyle could have defeated this movie if they had used Brandon's school time to hide the spaceship somewhere else. Kyle has a big enough truck to move the object for miles. He could have dumped that evil spaceship in a lake and hoped the water acted as a natural insulator, meaning the liquid might have prevented the spaceship from communicating with Brandon and kept him from going down the path of crime. But whatever, because Tori tries to calm her son down, telling him he's special, but when she reveals Brandon's origins, the little guy loses it and throws a tantrum, blaming his parents for lying to him. He then leaves the house, letting off some steam by firing a laser beam from his eyes. Brandon completely abandons the manners taught by his parents and flies over to Caitlin's house to apologize for breaking her hand. He tells her he's a special boy, and that soon the whole world will know it. Caitlin tries to defend herself, saying that her mom doesn't want Brandon anywhere near her. Brandon simply tells Caitlin not to worry about that, as he'll take care of it quickly. The little space kid finally understands the message the spaceship wanted to convey, as the translation of the alien language means that Brandon is supposed to conquer the world, which he fully intends to do. He then goes to the diner where Erica works and spends a lot of time writing his supervillain emblem on the shop's glass. Brandon also shows himself to be more powerful, to the point of manipulating electricity, which causes one of the light bulbs to break and a shard of glass to hit Erica's eye. The woman freaks out and tries to pull the shard out, but things are about to get worse, as Brandon enters the diner wearing a ridiculous costume. Erica is quick on her feet and hides in the freezer, thinking the thick door will protect her from danger, which I'm sorry to say, won't happen. Brandon uses his laser beam to melt the structure and easily kidnaps Erica. The next morning, Brandon pretends to be an angel and says he doesn't blame his parents for hiding the truth, but Tori thinks this story is too good to be true and asks merrily to have a conversation with him. The therapist asks if he feels any remorse for breaking Caitlin's hand, to which Brandon reveals that he thinks he's superior to humans in the best Adolf Hitler style. Merrily says she needs to talk to the sheriff the next morning and gives Brandon a chance to show remorse, which he does not. Later, we see Kyle, Noah, and a few other guys theorizing about what happened to Erica since the police haven't found a body yet. That's when Noah says the conversation is great, but he needs to head home if he doesn't want to sleep on the couch. He's only had a couple of beers, but still, Kyle offers him a ride. Noah declines and heads home, completely unaware that Brandon is already there. The little kid tells his aunt that it would be better for everyone if she didn't tell the sheriff about his lack of empathy. However, the aunt doesn't like the delinquent kid's threat and tells him to get lost. Merrily goes to bed and doesn't realize that Brandon, the delinquent, is already inside the house wearing his evil pajamas. The worst doesn't happen only because Noah arrives at the house, and when he opens the closet, he runs into Brandon hiding there. Noah seemingly has some kind of trigger when he gets scared because he treats his nephew like a horse and puts him in the car to take him home. But the juvenile doesn't like the disrespect and shoves his uncle against the garage gate. Noah realizes that Brandon is missing and hits the road to warn the kid's parents that their son is probably a psychopath. The problem is, the supervillain hits the car until the engine stops working, and Noah gets desperate as the delinquent nephew approaches him on the road. The only way to save yourself here is to run into the forest, since the movie doesn't give any indication that Brandon has X-ray vision, meaning Noah could have stayed hidden until the kid got tired of searching. What I wouldn't do is stay inside the Jeep, which isn't working. The car is lifted into the air and then dropped, sending Noah and his jaw into oblivion. At this point, Brandon's parents are completely worried about the disappearance of their son. That's when he returns home and lies through his teeth, saying he was playing soccer with the kids from class. Brandon goes further with the lie, inventing that the other boys threw him to the ground and beat him, which forced him to take off his shirt. Kyle and Tori don't fall for it this time and know he's lying. That night, Kyle has a nightmare about the day the kid's spaceship crashed, where he sees Tori dying while holding the baby in her arms. Kyle and Tori receive a call from the hospital where Merrily tells them she's now the newest single mom in Kansas. She asks if Noah had been drinking at the bar, but Kyle says not enough to crash the car. Brandon's father realizes that the fake soccer game and Noah's death are just too much of a coincidence. He sneaks into his son's room and finds the shirt he wore the night before, noticing there's a bit of blood on the fabric. Kyle finally decides to prevent things from getting worse, going full Anakin Skywalker idiot mode, and comes up with a plan to deal with his son for good. He says he's going camping with Brandon and asks his wife to stay at home. However, Tori says that Brandon couldn't have faked a car accident of that magnitude. Oh, honey, you saw your son flying last week. Why do you think he wouldn't be able to lift a car? Kyle tries to tell her that the blood on Brandon's shirt probably belongs to Noah, but even with the crime evidence, Tori is still dumb enough not to believe it. Defeating the movie at this point would have been extremely simple if Tori had just said that Brandon could be harmed by parts of the spaceship. If Kyle had known this, he could have melted part of the spaceship's metal and molded it into a bullet, kind of like Batman did with kryptonite to deal with Superman. Just think about it. Kyle has experience with weapons and could probably get access to a furnace to soften the spaceship's metal. With that, a shot with this material would have pierced Brandon's skin and taken him out. But whatever. Kyle thinks simple firearms will do the job as he shoots Brandon in the back. Unfortunately, the bullet ricochets off the delinquent kid's steel skin, and he quickly figures out what his dad was trying to do. Without mercy, we see Brandon using his laser vision to melt Kyle's skull, ensuring he doesn't come back for the sequel. Meanwhile, we see the sheriff knocking on Tori's door, showing her a picture of the diner after Erica disappeared. He points to Brandon's emblem, believing the BB stands for Brandon Brier. It's only at this moment that Tori understands the mess she's gotten herself into, and she tells the sheriff to leave her farm and rushes to her son's room, where she finds the same devilish symbol written on several sheets of notebook paper. She desperately calls Kyle to tell him he was right. I'm sure he would have loved to hear his wife admit she was wrong for the first time in her life. But instead, Brandon answers the phone and gives her the bad news, warning her that Kyle can't respond from beyond. That's when Brandon has a massive tantrum and starts flying around the house, destroying the whole building. Not knowing what to do, we see Tori calling the police, and the sheriff and another officer show up to help. The sheriff gets smashed by Brandon into the farm's fence, and the generic officer is forced to play pinball with her head as Brandon crashes through the wall with her. At this moment, Tori could have taken advantage of her son being distracted by the police to run to the barn and use pieces of the spaceship to attack Brandon, but I guess hiding under the bed is going to solve everything. When Tori has that idea, it's too late because she runs to the spaceship, but Brandon catches up with her. Tori sees Erica's remains decorating the place and quickly grabs a shard of the spaceship. It doesn't take long for the woman to be cornered by Brandon. She then appeals to sentiment and says she believes her son has goodness inside him. Brandon says he wants to be good, but at this point, that's gonna be pretty hard. Despite this, Tori realizes she has to finish it, and while hugging her son, she tries to stab him with the shard in the back. However, if she's hugging him, it's obvious Brandon will notice her raising her arm, so Tori should have attacked from the front, aiming directly at his heart. That way, it would have been harder for Brandon to predict her plan. Unfortunately, the woman is dumb, and Brandon catches her arm. He then takes her outside for some fresh air. Brandon then lets go of Tori, who realizes she's made the biggest mistake of her life. The kid looks to the side and sees a commercial airplane approaching. The next morning, the news reports that a flight with 268 passengers crashed on the Brier family farm, which also took Tori and Kyle. Obviously, it was Brandon who shot down the plane on purpose to cover up the criminal life he's been living. The evil Superman appears casually eating a cookie, and over the months, the internet starts seeing the kid in various locations spreading terror. Brightburn received poor reviews from critics, though it was a bit more appreciated by the public. In my opinion, it's a decent movie, nothing that will change the world, although the premise of a young, evil Superman is really interesting. I felt the script didn't know how to establish a logical line throughout its hour and a half. What I mean is, there's no nuance, no conflict that could be explored regarding Brandon. The character is good until the spaceship communicates with him, and then he turns bad. This transition is poorly done, and there's no reason for the kid to hold back or try to cover up his crimes, so I honestly don't get why he went to his aunt's house asking her not to tell the sheriff if he easily gets rid of the cop the next day without a problem. The endings are cool, and I got the impression that the soundtrack was trying to mirror the one composed by Hans Zimmer for Man of Steel, which I honestly liked a lot because I'm a fan of that guy. It's a fun movie to watch without commitment on a Sunday afternoon, and I'd give it a 6 out of 10. At the box office, Brightburn did well, earning over $33 million on a budget of just $6 million. A sequel started being developed after its release, which according to producer James Gunn, would feature other superpowered characters, such as a hybrid creature of human and sea monster and a witch, which was hinted at in the news at the end of the first film. Unfortunately, the sequel got shelved due to an unexplained copyright conflict, so you can forget about that. Without further ado, let's move on to the body count. The total number of bodies in the movie was 274, and the golden body count trophy goes to Noah. Don't forget to hit the like button so this content reaches as many people as possible.